a few years ago, was it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the GBC agreed that, or requested, I should say, requested the BBT, and the BBT agreed that all of their construction money that's available for construction, after they give some to BI and a few other things that they do, all of their construction, available money for construction, should go to the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium. Last year, that was reduced to 75% because, anyway, different reasons, but it was reduced to 75%. So whatever percentage of their profit goes to construction, for the next 5 years, I think it is, 75% of that percentage that goes to construction will go to the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium. Now, I think, and again, I preface that, and I could be wrong, but I think last year, the actual figure that went from the BBT to the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium, I think, was $400,000 US. I think that was the figure. And that would have represented, because that was last year, that would have represented 100% of the money that they set aside for construction. Of the BBT profits that they set aside for construction, that would have represented 100%, and I think it was 400,000.
No, I haven't followed that for years, actually.
You don't follow it, yeah, okay. But I can check it on my computer and give you an answer later if it's different from what I've said. You know, but I think that's more or less it.
It's just nice to know that we're helping.
Oh, you're helping, big time. Big time. As well as distributing all the books and funding the BBT and keeping the book publication and production going. On top of all of that, then also cash is going to help build this temple. Absolutely.
Another point, and you talked a little about it, what effect do you think that we will see here in the West from the TOVP being completed?
Well, in one sense, to some degree, it's up to us. But we have a massive asset that we can use once that temple is finished to promote ourselves in the Western world. Because how many times, and many people will say, that, I don't know. I was on an airplane about 10 years ago, going to my operation. It must have been about 10 years ago now. And it was one of those airplane rides actually that I really enjoy, because when I got on the plane in London, actually it was a British Airways flight from London direct to Calcutta, I got on the plane and there must have been about 15 devotees on it. And I thought to myself, fantastic, it's like, Krishna won't take down a plane with 15 devotees on it. If I'm the only devotee on it, then he might take it down. But he's not going to take down 15 devotees, surely. So, actually, Ram Maharaj was on that flight. Ravindra Prabhu was on that flight. Mahaduti Prabhu was on that flight. Anyway, it was about 15 devotees on the flight. I thought, great. The only downside to it was that my wife had prepared me some really nice prasadam, some parathas with avocado dip, and all that kind of thing. That's always the devotees on it. Gonna have to show it, So I did. I went around them all, gave them some parathas and avocado dip, and I still managed to keep some for myself, And I got back to my seat, and I was sitting in an aisle seat, and in the aisle seat opposite me, there was a girl, she was about 20 or something like that, and she said to me, she says, oh, what were you doing there, And I said, oh, I just know these people, and I just have some nice food here, this really nice vegetarian food, blah blah, avocado, blah, 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 blah. And she says to me, oh, can I have one? Anyway, that was literally 20 minutes into the flight. It had just taken off, and the seatbelt signs had gone off. That's when I went around and distributed the shower. I talked to that girl for the next 9 hours or 8 hours, whatever it was, to Calcutta the whole way. The first question she asked me, this is going back now to why I remember the story, based on your question. The first question she asked me was, she said, I do that because she was finding that she couldn't quite get the words out as exactly what she wanted to ask, so she sort of was stumbling a little bit, but then she said, like, who are you? What are you? Because we're all dressed as devotees, And I said, I said, with the Hare Krishnas, you don't know the Hare Krishnas? And she says, no. She was part, there was about 20 then, she was about another 20 people. She was part of a Christian group who do charity work, and they were flying to Calcutta to help Mother Teresa's, whatever it's called, Sisters of Charity, whatever, in Calcutta. So that's why she was going to Calcutta. Never heard of the Hare Krishnas. Just never heard. She was about 20 years of age. They were from Chicago. They were all from Chicago in the US. Never heard of the Hare Krishnas. And, so that's the reality for, we live as devotees, and practically speaking, we only associate with devotees. Our whole life is mixing with devotees, There's people out there who've never ever heard of us, Just never heard of us. Hare Krishna, complete blank, So I spent the next, number of hours talking to her about the Hare Krishnas and who we are and what we are and what we're about, And of course, it was simple Bhagavad Gita philosophy. We're not the body, we're eternal spirit, soul. It's the etc. He's the supreme person. All the basic points of Krishna consciousness. But of course, you do get into it a little bit. Then you talk about detachment from the body. We're eternal. We're going to die. Therefore, we should focus on our spiritual side. We shouldn't be attached to the body. All that kind of stuff. So I talked to her for about, as I say, whatever it was, 7 hours or so, whatever it was. Coming into Calcutta, about 45 minutes or so from Calcutta, when we were choosing that, we hit the worst turbulence that I have ever experienced on an airplane, which is amazing considering that when I first got on the plane, I thought, oh, that's great, there's 15 devotees on it, it's not going to be a problem. We really hit some bad turbulence, where the plane suddenly drops a few hundred feet, whatever it is, So many of the passengers were throwing up, actually, the girl that I was talking to, she also was throwing up, In those situations, of course, I always look at the crew, see what the crew, crew's reacting, because they look nervous and you kind of figure out you might have a bit of a problem. But I just remember thinking to myself, God, Christians have really got a sense of humour. I just spent the last 7 hours telling this girl, you're not the body and you shouldn't be attached to the body, you're going to die, now all of a sudden I'm having to look really cool, taking out my beads, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's quite funny. But anyway, the point is that they didn't know us, they don't know the Hare Krishna. So our preaching, like as Prabhupada said, I was speaking at that festival that we had in Calcutta on the 13th of August in the Netaji Stadium, and that was one of the points that I was making to the audience when I was saying to them that, Prabhupada was very, very merciful, and one of the things he was very merciful about is he wanted to bring the whole world to Mayapur, but he didn't actually do it himself. He's left lots of people for us to bring to Mayapur. So the preaching is just unlimited out there. There's so many people who don't even know who we are. They've never heard of us. So this temple will be a huge asset because it's just so impressive. Just the very fact that we can say that it's second only to the Vatican in size, will have impact on people. Then we'll have lots of video presentations, 3D presentations of what's going on in it, showing the, Golokanamni, Dvitanamni, Tale, showing the different dams, etc. like that. So you do school programs here. You can bring, this materials to the schools and show them this is our world headquarters, So yeah, basically speaking, it's an asset for us to use, to tap into, and depending on how much we tap into it, that's up to us. But yeah, I think it can have a really big impact. Because, just to finish the point, terrible tendency not finishing the point. I just remembered I didn't finish the point about the foundation, about why we can't build as high as the Vatican. Because if we wanted to build as high as the Vatican, it's only an extra 15 metres up, but we would have had to go out about an extra 100 metres all around the building and put another couple of thousand piles in, to secure it all. So that's why we didn't do it. So your point though, how much we use the acid, now I've forgotten that point. Wow. How much we promote it.
How much we tap into it and how much we benefit from it was what you were talking about. In terms of we can use it in presentations, school programs. You were talking about.
Yeah, we need to just get the message out there. That was my point. So people don't know us, and and then even people who do know us, they often think we're just a really, minor, sort of weird group of people, the small and look at our world headquarters, you know, this is where we're coming from. You may, because you over here you don't know us or you haven't really heard of us and you think we're just some small, no, look at this, you know, this is where we're coming from, you know, this is our headquarters, etc., you know. So it will show people that we have, you know, substance, you know, and history, and yeah, we have something really substantial behind us. Just like another example would be that you'd probably be able to relate to here, given that we're in Europe, is it's quite an amazing thing. Every year, the devotees are invited to 10 Downing Street to officiate at the Diwali celebrations. You know, now a lot of this is to do with the Indian community in the UK, but it's the devotees who are invited to actually do the inauguration. You know, the little yagya, and it's the devotees who speak and all of that. You know, I've been there a few times myself. So that's 10 Downing Street. That's the residence of the Prime Minister. Just now, the devotees they met Modi in Wembley Stadium. You know, after the event, behind the scenes kind of thing. You know, that they met Modi. We have some pictures on that sort of. And that's because we've been preaching there for, you know, since 1969, 46 years or whatever it is we've been preaching there. And the preaching's gone quite well, and we've linked up with the Indian community, and that's added to our kind of, you know, whatever. So you develop a presence, and people are aware of you, and you have influence actually in the society. Just across the water, you get a train and travel 45 minutes to France, and we're practically persona non grata there. You know, we're on their, you're recording this, but we're on their, they have a list, a top 10 list of dangerous cults, you know, and we're on it, you know, the French government, you know. It's like, I was told by the devotees there, I used to go there quite frequently, I was told there by the devotees there that, you know, you're not allowed, as Hare Krishnas, we're not allowed to open a post office account in the post office, we're not allowed to open because we're Hare Krishnas, we're a dangerous cult, you know. I just couldn't believe that, you know, because again, Ireland's very similar to the UK. We're not as big in Ireland as we are in the UK, but the mood with the people and the government is all positive and upbeat, and everyone thinks we're cool and good, and you know, all that kind of stuff. I just couldn't believe that, you know. If I walked into a post office in Ireland and the guy says to me, you can't open an account because you're Hare Krishna, I mean, you would just sue. You'd sue the post office. You'd make millions, you know. You can't. You know. So I went into a post office in Paris, you know, this was about 10 years ago, something like that, you know, and I had a devotee with me, you know, just in case they didn't speak English, and just explained that I want to open a post office account. And 45 minutes away, you're shaking hands with the Prime Minister. You know, David Cameron or Tony Blair or whatever, we've been going to the 10 Downing Street for years and years and years, you know. David Cameron has been to the Manor. The previous guy, Gordon Brown, has been to the Manor. You know, it's like, it's just extraordinary, you know. So it just depends how you exploit a situation. So the Temple of the Planetarium will be there available to us, and it just depends on how we exploit it and use it for our benefit. But I would say if we're intelligent and we're enthusiastic and we're committed, we can exploit it hugely to the benefit of our preaching in the Western countries, hugely to our benefit.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, that we need to learn how to collaborate, cooperate with other groups, because we stay within ourselves on four walls. Nothing much is going to happen by that. But it seems that UK is a wonderful example of how to cooperate with other groups, make connections, which actually makes things happen. So, but of course, must have been through a lot of lessons learned through all of that, you know. And I think that's something that would be good for us to think about, because I think that's essential in order for us to get where that position which is enjoyed by the UK Yatra now, that came through making connections, speaking with the right people,
yeah.
engage, like involving oneself in the right kind of partnerships and like that, is knowing what, yeah.
So
I think that's a crucial part for us to.
Yeah. One thing, I mean, you know, many devotees have worked very, very hard in the UK to get to where they are, so I don't want to sort of, you know, just minimise that. But I would say that one of the most significant events in the UK that really propelled us onto a different level was when they threatened to close the manor down on planning grounds because there wasn't proper roads and this and that, you know. So technically, from a technical point of view, they could close us down. because we weren't complying with planning law. Of course, what happened then was they went on a fundraiser to buy extra land and then put in permission to get a road. That's the road that you drive in now. That's effectively a new road. Previously, everything was coming through that tiny little village of Letchmore Heath, you know. And from the planning point of view, yes, they could close us down. And it got to that point where that threat was there to close us down. And once that happened, the whole Hindu community got behind the campaign, you know, and it didn't become a planning issue. It became a religious civil rights kind of issue. This is our place of worship. How can you close it down? And then the compromise was found. We bought that extra land. They gave us the right to build that road, and the whole problem was solved. But the benefit of them threatening to close down was massive for us, because it rallied the whole Indian community in the UK. And from that day on, you know, we were quote unquote a force to be kind of reckoned with like that. You know.
Like that you saw who your friends are and the connection remained even after this
Sure.
had been
Sure.
done.
It takes work. It takes work. Even collecting for the TOVP, because I'm a little connected with that. I have the service as vice chairman of the TOVP somehow or another. So I'm quite familiar with their fundraising campaign. But it takes a lot of work, you know. You get people to pledge, but then you have to follow up with them, keep in contact with them. When they come to Mayapur, look after them, send them newsletters about what's going on. You know, it's a process. It doesn't just happen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you could speak a little about the security in Mayapur, because I'm thinking also that India's people out there, you have terrorists who can bomb a place to dust and like that. So what is the security for Mayapur? I know it's massive.
Also,
it's massive. You have, isn't it? You have quite strong security.
Yeah, it can always be better, of course. Actually, it's interesting. You know, I had a conversation with Shri Maharaj a little while back. Actually, a good while back, probably 2 years ago, on that topic. In the sense, I tell you what happened was that what was happening at the time? There was something happening in the world. One of these kind of like a Y2K. Not that it wasn't Y2K. It wasn't that long ago. There was something happening.
2012, the world is going to end.
What was that? Maybe that was it. But I don't
the end of the Mayan calendar and.
Oh, maybe it was that. Maybe it was that one. The Mayan calendar. Anyway, something like that. Anyway, but he was having some meeting or had a meeting or whatever with the local mayor in that area, or some senior kind of guy in that area, and that was the point he brought up to him. He said, you know, yeah, what you're doing here is wonderful. You've got land, you've got your own water, you've got cows, you've got vegetables, you've got all this stuff. You know, you're effectively self-sufficient. You know, like that. He says your biggest problem would be security, because if something goes wrong out in that world, you know, people will get to know, well, hang on a second, there's a place down there that has all this facility. You know, he says you'll get overrun. You know, you need to consider how you're going to secure this place. You know, in a situation like that. So it's true, security is a big issue from that point of view, but also from the point of view that you're raising, terrorism, and you know, in that sense, Mayapur is you know. With terrorism, of course, you know, in one sense, nowhere is safe almost, you know. They can literally strike. They did something here a few years back as well, didn't they, with some cartoon person or something? Didn't they do something here in Denmark?
That didn't develop into terrorism, but they were just threatening. But we had a small terrorist attack here. Was the beginning of this year? Three people were killed, and they. You know,
oh really? I didn't hear that one.
We just had this in Paris. That was a major one.
Well, that was major. Yeah, that was a big thing.
We had a similar small, but you know, they tried, but they shot 3 people.
Wow.
Massive police.
So it can happen anywhere in that sense. You know, you would consider Denmark, you know, the Nordic countries, you know, generally you consider them kind of safe-ish kind of places, you know, but they can actually strike anywhere. But West Bengal, of course, you know, there is a huge. I'm not even calling it a little sensitive subjects. I don't know where this stuff goes, but you know, but there is a huge Muslim population in India. Actually, there's more Muslims in India than any other country in the world. You know.
Indonesia has more.
Oh, I thought India had the most.
You know, I heard India was second. But.
Oh, maybe. I heard India was first actually. But anyway, whatever it is, they have a huge Muslim population. Like there's more Muslims in India than there is in Pakistan. There's more Muslims in India than there is in Saudi Arabia, more than in Iran, and like there's a huge Muslim population in India. And West Bengal is one of the highest percentages of Muslims versus Hindus, because it's very close to Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is a Muslim country. So, in that sense, yes, it's definitely a concern. As you say, we do have reasonable security there, but we have just been talking about it that we're going to have to put in more stringent security measures. Certainly for the pilgrims, our complication is we want to try and separate the devotees, because you don't have to put the devotees through a big long queue. You want to have them to be able to access the temple, actual members of our organisation like that. But we are upgrading the security actually, and particularly, but certainly by the time the temple, the deities will be relocated, it will be significantly upgraded. And I don't know if it will be as secure as we can make it. I'm sure you can always make things more secure. But yeah, there will definitely be efforts put into securing it as best as we can. Yeah, again, Lord Chaitanya, he could have appeared somewhere else, but he appeared like a few miles from Bangladesh border. Because the Bangladesh border wasn't there during Lord Chaitanya's time. Yes,
Just a short question, is there any fixed dates, like when the deities will be moved and when the worship will start? Like was that fixed already?
Yeah. You want to know what it is?
I guess we're all interested because we might be lucky to be in India at that time.
Well, you can plan to, or you can actually plan to be in India at that time. The plan is, and as we say in English, there's many a slip between the cup and the lip. But the plan is, on the 50th anniversary of Mayapur, of ISKCON Mayapur, which is 2022. So it's about 6 years. Gorpening, 6 years. This Gorpening coming? 6 years.
But moving the deities?
Yeah.
Okay, so I heard something about something will happen in 2016. It's something like the Kirtan Mela would be inside the temple room, or how is it? That's not verified, that's not.
Several years back, I think it was some.
Yeah, originally there was an idea that we'd try moving quicker, but I think originally, there was a bit of a naive thought that we'd be able to move on the 50th anniversary, but very quickly that came. It was clear that wasn't going to happen. This one, 2022 isn't particularly ambitious actually. In fact, it may well be that we'll be ready to move before then. That's possible. You just have to look at the amount of progress that has been made, and you consider there's another 6 years. So I think this one is definitely likely to happen. But yeah, 2022. 50th anniversary of Prabhupada getting that piece of land and getting down that bamboo ladder and laying the foundation stone. Okay.
I just have a short question also this with the cornerstone of this foundation stone. Where was that actually put in connection to where the temple is?
It's a good question actually. When we had the Bhumi Puja just before the construction started, we had a Bhumi Puja there. And the Bhumi Puja was on the site of where the foundation stone was. I struggle to remember now exactly where it was to pinpoint it. But that's easy found out. That's not a problem. It will be marked actually, but I'm just struggling now to remember exactly where it was. If I was to guess, because then it was just a big open space. Not guess, educated guess. It would be fairly central in the plot. So it's almost certainly somewhere in one of the three domes. But that's something. Thank you for asking that question actually, because that's something I should just know. They're pieces of information I should actually just lock into my brain, and have them. So I'll find out actually exactly where the foundation stone is.
Wasn't it that for quite some years the temple was planned to be built somewhere else, outside of the present property?
No, not outside. Well,
I mean, Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, well, again, on camera, in terms of all this information, but basically the law in West Bengal, because it was governed by communists for so long, is that any one person or any one entity can only own 24 acres of land. That's the land ceiling. You can only own 24 acres of land. So ISKCON only owns 24 acres of land in Lampur. The rest is owned by all these other trusts that have been set up by ISKCON, but legally they're separate from ISKCON. Now, of course, the West Bengal government, they kind of know the game that we're playing in one sense, but still you have to play the game because that's the law. 24 acres is the land ceiling. So what happened was, let's say that my phone is where the temple is being built now. Okay. This is this roughly represents 24 acres, and the area is the main gate, up the road behind the samadhi that brings you onto the road between the Goshala and the conch building, much closer to the conch building actually. So up behind the samadhi, then up to the conch building down to the beyond the lotus building, down to the long building, and then right down the long building and then back to the main gate. That's 24 acres of land, and that's where the temple is being built now. Previously, we were trying to build it roughly here, behind the conch building. We were trying to build it there. Now, here's the interesting thing. Prabhupada laid 2 foundation stones. One where we're building, but he also laid a foundation stone over there too. So from the devotee's point of view, it was legitimate to build it on either of those 2 sites. But the other site just proved too difficult to get the permissions for. But what swung it in the end, you see, in one sense we didn't really want to build it where we're building it because it's in the kind of most congested part of the existing property. The long building's there, you've got the lotus building, the conch building there, you've got the samadhi and the bhajan kutir, so we're building it right in the middle, and in one sense, in an ideal world you probably wouldn't have done that because it would be better to have built it on a greenfield site with no other buildings kind of thing. The good fortune though is right in front of it, the main entrance in from the side between the conch building and between the samadhi. That's a completely unobstructed view. There's 1 or 2 minor buildings that we'll just knock down. So you'll have a big long garden leading right up to the main entrance. So at least on one side it's completely unobstructed like that. So that's nice. So what happened was we couldn't get the permission. One of the complications for trying to get the permission was that it was agricultural land. And again, because you've got a communist government, the whole trip with the communists and they're for the peasants and the land, it's like, agricultural land is like sacred, and they were refusing to allow us to rezone it, so that we could build on it. I'm terrible for this because I just can't resist just telling it as it is, because this is as it is, that after giving them unlimited backhanders, to try to get to permission, they still wouldn't give it, so not only do you not get permission, but you give them God knows how much lakhs of rupees, to try to get the permission, and then they still don't come through on their promise, it's terrible, I read an article in Time magazine, again, it must be about 15 years ago actually, this, and one of the articles, the article that I read in the magazine, it was the 10 most corrupt countries in the world. And that was the article. So I'm looking at the article, the 10 most corrupt countries in the world, and they had all the usual suspects, Venezuela, and Haiti, and Pakistan, and whatever, all the usual kind of countries. And then at the very top of the list, with an asterisk beside it, but at the very top of the list, it said West Bengal. And then you look at the asterisk, the asterisk says, we are